Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for March 6th, 2025. Lots to talk about tonight. Usually when Kenny comes on, we're like, oh, what are we going to discuss tonight? Like, what's our topic? Like, just like so much has happened today. You had the Joe Thuney trade. You had a bunch of players re-signed. You had Joey Bosa just got cut an hour ago. DK Metcalf's on the trading block. We're going to discuss all that and more. And Kenny's going to call me out on some stuff, apparently. So can't wait to see what that is. But before we begin, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, I'm wearing one of these shirts. August. It's not August, but still, you can still wear these. August is Gluttony Month. You can get this shirt and many others on the WalterFootball.com merch store, which I'm pulling up right now. Still 15% off. These shirts are like $14, $15. We have a lot of new stuff. We have the Hindsight is 50-50 mug. So, you know, it's either hindsight or not. You never know. And some guys flipping a coin. So you can get that. You can get you cannot change the stripes of a leopard. Where some guys trying to change the stripes of the leopard. It's not going to work out for him. So we have some mugs. We have Make Football American Again shirt. A bunch of other stuff. We also have this Josh Allen Derangement Syndrome Awareness Month T-shirt, which I replied to someone on Twitter, and he got very offended. So it's already paid off, I feel like. So again, you can get this and many others on the merch store. You can buy my book on Amazon. Jerks of the College Years is a book where I made fun of people. I saw at Penn State for 6 years. Also, there's another book that I wrote. It's called How the 2020 MVP Was Stolen, which is an expose about how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers about 4 years ago. So it's a crazy story and all true. So you guys can check that out. Please consider Super Chat, Super Stickers as well. Slew and John Sanders were great the most recently. And then also Cam McEagle, DeGenon, The Boss, Alan Stafford. You guys have been so great. I keep saying this, but it really means a lot because YouTube ads pay nothing. And you guys it's like octuple, like what we would make. So any contributions, really appreciated. All right. We're joined by Kenny. The cap is fake. Kenny, how's it going?
Oh man, it's great. By the way, am I frozen? Are you frozen?
I am frozen apparently. I don't know why, but you can hear me though, right?
I can hear you, but you've got a frozen face.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why. We'll try to figure it out. But so I'm frozen and froze again. I think I have too many tabs open. What do you think?
There are a few tabs open on your computer apparently. There are a few. I think I think both of you should hold up out of one response. That's a good one. And so I think how you asked me how am I doing? I'm doing great,
yes.
Actually. Life is grand. We're actually moving on Saturday. So and so the month of March will be great. It'll be a month where we have 2 house payments because we have a house we've been renting and a house we just bought. And so I'm really excited to have two house payments for the month of March, but so that'll be great.
Well, why not? 2 is better than 1, right? What's the Iceman tonight?
It's like a weird. Oh, sorry. It was like a weird, goofy thing where it's like we couldn't move in the time we had to buy the house at a certain time and we had to close by a certain time. And anyway, it all worked out that we basically have 2 houses and 2 house payments for the month of March, which is gonna be great for the wallet.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rough. Unfortunately, more rough than my video. So saying, "What's the Iceman tonight?" Well, based on my NBA picks, Iceman since beginning last week, apparently. But yeah, just pretty rough. Anyway, we have a lot to get to tonight. I'm kind of debating. I think Walt needs more sleep. Man can barely move. I'm debating, like, I'm in Task Manager. I'm debating closing one of these Chrome things, but that could boot me off. So I'm not sure if that's worth it. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, why not jump right into it? I feel like the big news for today was that the Bears acquired Joe Thuney from the Chiefs for a 4th round pick. And I've said this before. Usually, like, you hear all these rumors about trades, and then the ones that happen are the ones you never hear about. Like, I didn't hear anything about Joe Thuney potentially being traded. And I know, like, the Chiefs, they don't have the most cap space, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But at the same time, like, they have to re-sign Trey Smith, and They have other needs to take care of. So, is it that surprising that they're moving on from the 32-year-old? Like in general, I'd say no. But Joe Thuney was so important for them last year, like not only playing guard, but then he slid out to left tackle, and he did pretty well for the most part. At least he got to the Super Bowl, and then he got exposed there. But I don't know. I was thinking that they'd move him back to guard again, and then they'd get a left tackle. There are a bunch of left tackles they can get at 31 in the draft. Like I have been taking Josh Connerly from Oregon, who's pretty athletic. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty confident that the Chiefs could come back, bounce back from their loss to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But now they lose this big weapon, and so yeah, I just don't know. It's this caught me off guard, and we'll see what the Chiefs do. Like this is only the beginning of the offseason. Free agency hasn't started yet, so we haven't seen their like whole grand plan yet. But this is a huge loss for the Chiefs. So I graded them as an F. Like given that their Super Bowl window is still open, they trade one of their best linemen. Just seems pretty rough. And then as far as the Bears are concerned, I think this is pretty amazing. They get protection for Caleb Williams, which they really needed. They also traded for another lineman. We'll get to that soon. But this is a great addition for Caleb Williams. So I think it's an easy A+ for the Bears. What do you think about the trade?
Yeah, I agree. I don't understand this move at all. Like literally, Thuney was, he's one of their top 2 offensive linemen all year. You could argue he was the best. But like he was really good. They should have never moved him to left tackle. They probably should have left him at guard. Leaving him at left tackle obviously got exposed in the Super Bowl. But I don't know. Maybe they had limited options. I get it. But it doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, we just made it to the Super Bowl, and let's just go ahead and get rid of our best or one of our best offensive players. Like, what? I don't make any sense. I don't get it. Did they watch the same Super Bowl we watched? Like, did they watch their offensive line totally get blown up? And so maybe that's an argument. Maybe they think, okay, Thuney's done or smoked or cooked. I don't know. It just seems goofy to me that they would move on from it at this point.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, and again, like we'll see what they do for the rest of the offseason. Like they could have this plan involved, but yeah, I don't. It's definitely a step back for them at the moment. I bet on the Chiefs at 9-1 to win the Super Bowl. I had a profit boost to get there, but like 7-1, it feels like you can do it. But like 9-1 seemed pretty good. And I even said yesterday, I'm like, Chiefs and Bills right now are just far and away the best teams in the AFC. I still think that even without Thuney, like, obviously they're going to make more offensive line moves. But at the moment, I still think they are the 2 best teams in the conference. But with Thuney gone, I think the Bills, I think the edge goes to the Bills a little bit. What do you think about
that? Yeah, at current time, as you said a moment ago, like, obviously, who knows what's the situation, what's their grand plan. Maybe they move on and they're able to acquire other players. Maybe they have a plan in place. It's very possible, but it seems what we know right now, it doesn't seem to make sense. So, yeah, but maybe I'm wrong. At the end of the day, you mentioned here on the page, mentioned on your website and here, they're not in a great cap situation. Like any team, this is like my shtick for years, and it will continue to be my shtick. Like any team making trades or cuts because of the cap, either or one of 2 things. Either they're just flat out liars. They're lying to their fans. Oh, it's the cap. We can't keep these players. They're just lying. Or they're just total incompetent imbeciles because the cap is so easily manipulated that it might as well be fake. Like it might as well not. It's useless. So if you are a fan of a team and the team implies that they have to cut a player, get rid of a player because of the cap, you could just translate that to your head to say, oh, my team, the team I root for is run by incompetent imbeciles. That's the only proper rational interpretation of that sort of sentiment or commentary.
Yeah, you're right about that. But some teams are just not willing to spend. Bengals, for example, like there are some teams that are just not going to spend. Whereas other teams are willing to do that, and they circumvent the cap pretty well, as we've detailed. The Eagles are masterful at it. The Saints have done it a lot, but they've done it more sloppily. where they're like right now. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess there's a third category. I forgot. You're right. Just total cheap SOBs. I forgot about
Yeah.
that category.
Yes.
So that's the that's the yeah. So they're outright liars, they're totally incompetent imbeciles, or they're just the cheapest SOBs on the planet. Usually, though, number one and number three go together. The people who are cheap and liars that they tend to go hand in hand.
It's true. John says Saints kicking the can down the road finally caught up with them. They've been average since Breeze left. Yeah, look, that's the problem with the Saints. Like they're able to be pretty top heavy, but their depth is so awful that like if they suffer some injuries, they're just toast. Like they couldn't do anything last year. So yeah, it's
The Saints are $1 billion over the cap every year. They make it work.
I know. The cap is fake, as Kenny always says.
I'd like to. What are they? What is their actual projection at the current time? Do you know what it is?
Yes, it's 46 million over the cap right now.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, Browns are in rough shape too. This is why they're talking about Myles Garrett being traded. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're right now five teams over the cap, or 6 teams over the cap: the Dolphins, Chiefs, Falcons, Bills, Browns, and Saints. But really, the Browns and the Saints are in the worst shape. I don't know. It just feels like the Saints should just just implode the whole thing and just start from scratch. I think. I don't know. We'll see. I heard that there's a chance that they might go with Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback this year, which just is like, okay, so you're tanking for Arch Manning then, right?
Yeah, that would be smart. The thing about imploding it, or blowing it, kind of just letting it implode and doing that. That's actually I've actually been doing a little bit of research on cash flow. I was telling you before we started recording that I've been working on an article on how cash flow in the NFL works and how that impacts teams' ability to acquire players. And one of the things, you realize is that cash flow does as teams are bringing in money, bringing in revenue, they're actually it's actually there's no incentive to be good in the NFL, or there's very little incentive. Like you need to be good enough to be relevant, and for your fans still want to spend money, but you don't have to win. There's actually a lot of evidence that if you're 8-8 every year, or 8 and whatever now it is, if you're mediocre every year and barely miss the playoffs every year, and you actually could be that's the avenue to being the most profitable. And so if the Saints were to let it implode this year, they actually would end up, the owner would make more money, just letting it implode and kind of just letting it, cutting every player, he would make more money, which the structure sort of incentivizes owners to not want to be good.
Yeah, I mean, Slew says it here. Average is good for the Saints. No bags. Maybe that's what they figured out. They don't want to be the Aints. They don't want this paper bags coming back. They just want to be 7-10, 8-9, 9-8
right.
every year. And if they win, so be it. That's a bonus. But I guess they're kind of lucky that they're in the worst division of football. If they were in a tougher division, they wouldn't be average. They would be well below average. They wouldn't have these easy wins, like they had against the Panthers. Although they did lose to Carolina the second time they played them, but first time was a blowout. So yeah, they do get some free wins every year.
As a capitalist at heart, I love when ownership of any business figure out how to make money. I think it's great. Good for you, mazel tov. But as a sports fan, I hate it. I hate that there's any system that would allow you to be mediocre intentionally and still get rewarded. I hate that. As a sports fan, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I totally get that. You don't want these teams to strive for mediocrity. You want them to be to think that they could win the Super Bowl every year, and some teams do that. Like you see the Eagles, for example, they overspend, and not overspend for players. I mean, but they definitely circumvent the cap enough to give themselves a great chance to win. Mm-hmm. So, it's why some of these teams are always terrible, and some of these teams are amongst some of the best in the NFL every year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this one comment I want to get to. Richard says, "Can you stop being wankers now and call Washington their correct name, the Commanders?" That's not true. The Commander brand needs something now with Jane Daniels. You're not even Washington fans. Why do you care? Hey, I bet the Redskins to win the Super Bowl. I always say that the team I root for is the team I'm betting on. So I'm a big Redskin fan this year, and I demand that the Redskins go back to their team name. So I don't like the slander that I'm not a Redskins fan right now. No, the real name is the Redskins. It's so stupid, this woke nonsense that they just changed his name because white people white people who used to have blue check marks before everyone could have them. Like they were the ones who were most offended by it. And you had two Washington Post polls. They polled Native Americans, and 90% of them, it was like 88 and like 90 percent, both times said that they support the name. And yet the white people who are offended on Twitter just they needed it taken away to feel better about themselves. So I'm not playing into that. I also don't call the Washington Wizards the Wizards. I call them the Bullets. Same thing.
I am less principled than you are. Walt, you're a man of principle. I love that you're like like there's like a principled reason why you still call them the Redskins. I still call them the Redskins honestly because I just forget that they changed their name because I'm just dumb.
Hey, I think I've said this before, and it sounds like a joke, but it's true. I think that calling the Commanders is actually racist to Native Americans because it's been proven that 90% of them like the name and want the name. There's actually 4 Native American high schools. I did the research on this. There's 4 Native American high schools in this country that go by Redskins as their mascot. So like this is a proud name for them. The Redskins was a code word that used in the French Indian War by Native Americans. So like it's not like they're called like the scalping savages or something. It's like the Redskins.
Wow,
The Redskins is actually a proud name for them. Like they like it. It's not a slur. Like every time someone's like, "Oh, it's a slur," like no, it's not. It's not at all.
Again, you're more principled than I am.
Washington Rednecks. Yeah, I've seen like some guy on Twitter. He usually like does this like once every few months. Like he posts a picture of himself wearing a shirt that says Washington Caucasians. And he's like, "Are white people offended by this?" I'm like, "No white person's gonna be offended by this." Whatever.
I think I've seen that on Twitter.
It's the same guy. It's the same guy. Like every few months, he does it. I'm like that's still no one's offended by this. I think they'd actually support it. But anyway, let's get to another trade that happened. The Bears got Jonah Jackson from the Rams for 6th round pick. We don't have to spend as much time on this, but still good that the Bears got another offensive lineman here. Jonah Jackson is talented, but he's been injured a lot. So you can see why he's traded for a 6th round pick. He barely played last year. So like at first I was like, why are the Rams getting rid of Stafford's protection here? But he played. I think he played like 2 games last year. So Stafford's not going to be hurt by this at all. But it's still a 6th round pick. It's not much to give up to Chicago for upside. So if Jackson can stay healthy, they're going to have Thuney and Jackson protecting Caleb Williams, which is pretty good. So I like what Chicago is doing here. What do you think?
I mean, it was a huge upgrade from their offensive line that was just super inconsistent and couldn't keep them upright for large stretches of the season. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think this is good. Jonah Jackson, I guess I didn't realize he only played 2 games. I don't know. I guess I thought he played more than that, but yeah, that makes sense. Is he a phenomenal player? No. And maybe Thuney's over the hill, but the combination adding those 2 guys, like maybe they end up doing nothing, but the probability feels like this is an upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, there's a chance that he doesn't play at all, but it's a 6th round pick, so it's not like a huge deal. Although John bringing up that now Caleb can stand in the pocket for 30 seconds instead of 15. I had the 15 before throwing it away now. Yeah, I mean, that was the issue with Caleb last year. I don't think his offensive line was that bad last year. The problem is that 2 of their guards are free agents, so they're going to stand to lose them. And the 2 guards from a talent perspective are better than what they had last year. So the blocking will be better, but again, like Caleb Williams needs to improve just his mental flow in the pocket because like John's saying that like he was holding the ball too long. But I think that's where Ben Johnson comes in. I assume that Ben Johnson is going to get the most out of him and be able to correct a lot of these things too. So I think that Chicago is like, they were everyone's darling last year heading into the season. Like, every year there's like a popular pick that doesn't pan out. Last year with Chicago, I think that like this year, because they let everyone down, people are going to be reticent to kind of make them their sleeper again. And I think that there's a chance that they might actually meet expectations or exceed them this year. So I think there's a good buy low opportunity. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about the sentiment. Like maybe people are still going to be high on them. But I think that there might be some just negative feelings toward them because they let everyone down last year.
Yeah, I was one of the guys not excited to tout them at all. So, and I'm still not confident in Caleb Williams. I'm not sure he's good. I could be wrong, but I'm not convinced yet.
I think his talent. It just the mental part of his game wasn't there. Like he just, like as John said, he was holding the ball forever in the pocket, and then there was those two instances at the end of the games against the Lions on Thanksgiving, and then the Seahawks on Thursday night, where he just like his brain froze and like he just didn't use timeouts and they stalled down the field. Remember those two games? And like Matt Eberflus was fired after the first one, and so people are like, "Oh, maybe it's Matt Eberflus's fault." But no, it was Caleb Williams did the same thing about a month later. So that stuff needs to be corrected. And like, to be fair, he's only a rookie. For a rookie, like if you don't like consider what Jaden Daniels did, like for a rookie, Caleb Williams, I thought did okay. Like he wasn't that bad. If he had the season as a seasoned veteran, then yeah, it would be bad. But like, as a rookie, it's like fine. But he needs to make strides this year for sure, because he has upgraded coaching staff. He now has an upgraded offensive line. He has a couple of good weapons. Keenan Allen's a free agent, but he still has DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and also Cole Kmet. So like there are no excuses for him this year. Like he needs to take a big step forward. And I think if they don't make the playoffs, I think it's a disappointment. Even though the division's tough, I think that 10-7 making the playoffs, I think it's kind of like where the Bears should be this year.
Yeah, I guess it would depend on if they miss the playoffs, how they miss the playoffs. There's scenarios if like Caleb Williams is playing great, but just other things go wrong around him, or the division just ends up being really good. Like, so they could still miss the playoffs and it still be like maybe not a terribly disappointing year. But I think I generally agree with you. Like, yeah, this team should be competing for a playoff spot and should be trying to make a run. We've seen the other, obviously the other rookie NFC quarterback, Jaden Daniels, just took his team to the NFC title game. So I won't say the name of the team again because I was called a wanker. But
yeah,
I'm sure I know what a wanker is. Sorry,
that's an insult you can never come back from, wanker. That's pretty rough. I'm not gonna be sleeping tonight. I'm gonna be like waking up in sweats.
Like, should I Google wanker? Do I even want that in my search history? I don't know. What does that mean?
I mean, you're in academics. You might not want that on your computer.
A contemptible person. Okay, slang for one who wanks. It's a general insult, pejorative term of English common and British origins. Okay, all right. I'm a wanker. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, proud. I'm a proud wanker. No, look. If the Bears go 11-6 and miss the playoffs because the division's so good, I can excuse it. I think just generally just 10 wins. As I think that's where they should be, unless they have like a ton of injuries or something that just like prevents them from winning. But if like everything is average, I think that around 10-7 is where they need to be. We had one other trade that we discussed this on Saturday. I kind of want to get your opinion on this from a fantasy perspective, or in general, because this team that shall not be named, unless you're a wanker, resides in your division. So the Redskins got Deebo Samuel for 5th round pick. I gave my spiel on this. Like, I'm curious what you say about this trade.
My initial reaction actually has shifted, or my reaction now, my thinking now has actually shifted significantly from the original. My original reaction was, are the Niners nuts giving him away for only a 5th round pick? This is awesome for the team in Washington. Man, that team's going to be way better. Oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated as an Eagles fan. But as I thought about it more and more, I'm like, wait a minute. I still do think a 5th round pick feels like pretty low, but I'm like, they couldn't get more than a 5th round pick. But then I started thinking like, okay, Deebo, he is like, he is like 29, right? He's 29 years old or 30. Um,
Yes, certainly, yeah.
and the last time he was elite, like had an elite season was really 3 years ago, and he's had several injuries since then. And when he's got the ball, when he's healthy and he's got this ball in his hands in open space in the field, he's awesome, no doubt. But like, do the Commanders have the Redskins, whatever you want to call them? Don't be a wanker. Call them the Commanders, apparently. But does the Washington team, do they legitimately have the offensive genius, offensive strategic thinking to utilize Debo? Because he's not a traditional receiver, right? He's got to, he worked really well in the Shanahan system because of the schemes that Shanahan puts together. So I think initially I thought, wow, this is a great move for Washington. But I think over the last couple of days, I've kind of talked myself off the ledge and thought, well, actually, I wonder if he's going to be as good. And maybe the elite, like, star power or the actual, his starness is gone and the injuries are taking a toll and he's just going to be a good, not great player. And in that case, I'm not concerned about it at all. And I wonder if we just see him sort of fall off in fantasy. Like, maybe he just becomes a mediocre fantasy option.
Yeah, I mean, look, as Foster Carver says, he's not what he was. That's true. I mean, he was great 3 years ago before the Niners got Christian McCaffrey. Then McCaffrey being there, I think, took some touches away from him. So, like, the stats weren't there, but Debo still has some great games here and there. But as you said, that he's had a lot of injuries. And last year he got out to a decent start, but he got hurt in the Chiefs game in the middle of the season, and then he just had dreadful performance after dreadful performance last year. It's like he couldn't break 30 receiving yards for like a long stretch. They finally did at the end, but it was just too late for the 49ers. Now, like, he could bounce back. He could have a better year. He's going to be with a better quarterback, even though Brock Purdy's decent. Like, he's going to be with a better quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So yeah. Daniels could get more out of him than Purdy did. And who knows? Like, maybe his regression had something to do with Purdy because Purdy preferred George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, it seemed, and also McCaffrey, obviously, as a receiver out of the backfield. So I think Debo could have a good year, but those injuries could also continue. So yeah, look, this is not like guaranteed to make the Redskins better, but if Debo's healthy, it definitely makes them better, I think. So it's nothing but upside. It's a 5th round pick. Like, if this doesn't pan out, it's like no sweat. So John's saying here, he says, I think the Redskins could have waited to see if a better receiver was available, Metcalf, Kirk, etc. Which kind of brings us to our next topic. We had a bunch of we had some cuts today. We had Tyler Lockett and Christian Kirk were both cut, and Metcalf was put on the trade block. And look, if I don't think the Redskins are done here at receiver. They still need one more good receiver. They have McLaurin and Debo, but they don't really have anything else to position. Like, all their other tertiary pieces from last year, they're all free agents. Like Noah Brown, De'Ami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, like, they're all free agents. So it's not like these guys are even on their contract. So I think they could still make a play for like Christian Kirk or something, or Tyler Lockett if he's their third receiver. I don't think that's that bad. And then yeah, of course, like Metcalf. But before we get to Metcalf, like I know you're a big Christian Kirk fan, but he's had trouble staying healthy the past 2 years. So I could see why they cut him. But he's going to be a cheap option. I think, at least, given that he's had this dubious injury history. I think he's going to be a great signing. Whereas like Lockett is, he's on the downside of his career. He's 32, whereas like Kirk is 28. So like I think Lockett could have like one more decent season, like he gets like 750 receiving yards or something. And 4 touchdowns, I think, like, as a third option, I think that's okay. So I think he can still contribute. So I mean, what do you think about these cuts?
I mean, I've been a big Christian Kirk fan. I've thought he's underrated. I feel like I own him in every fantasy league every year. It's sort of an odd, funny thing. One of my guys. But yeah, he's been inconsistent and he's had injury issues, and he's not like an elite enough player to, like, I think, overcome that. And so Christian Kirk is the kind of player that at this stage in their career, when the injury bug starts to hit and they get cut, inevitably they kind of just fade into oblivion. And that's normally what happens with this style of player, this caliber player, I should say. So yeah, I think Christian Kirk's days are behind him, or his best days are behind. Not all of his days. That would be tragic. His best days playing football are behind him. And I don't know that would be an option that would be worthy of. If your team signs Kirk, that's not like, I don't think that's all that exciting. Where if your team were to trade for DK Metcalf, I think there's some legitimate, like I think in that case, there's actually potentially some awesome legitimate upside for DK. I think you're buying low on a guy that might still have 2 or 3, potentially really great seasons still in him.
Do you have any idea where Metcalf could go? I have a few teams I have, but do you have anyone in mind as far as possibilities for the Metcalf trade?
Well, I was on the phone with Jerry Jones a couple days ago and just talking about it, and I'm just getting obviously ridiculous. No, I don't know. I mean, the team that I've seen on Twitter most connected to Metcalf is the Patriots. But you said something, at the beginning of the show that I thought was, I think was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. That's so true. Is that the trades that are often most kind of bantered about for, any length of time are the ones that almost never actually take place. Right. I'm like choking on my own saliva over here.
Yeah, I'll list some possible teams for Metcalf as you recover. So I think Steelers makes sense. The Steelers have been trying to trade for a receiver for a while now. They tried to trade for Brandon Ayuk last year. I think Jerry Jeudy was a consideration, if I'm not mistaken. They really need a receiver outside of Pickens, and like Pickens has his own issues too. So the Steelers have a ton of cap space, and the caveat here is Metcalf said he wants to go to a contender. And, the Steelers make the playoffs every year. So I think they have to be considered a contender, even though they are a little far away right now. They don't have a quarterback, obviously. Chiefs, obviously contender. Maybe cutting this cap space is for, a big-time receiver like Metcalf. They have Rashee Rice coming back. They said they want Marquise Brown back. Xavier Worthy was great at the end of last year. But they still could use like that like big possession receiver, in the end zone. They tried it with Hopkins last year, and man, he really choked in the Super Bowl. It's like crazy, like Hall of Fame career, right? Like, you would say he's a Hall of Famer, right? He waited his whole career for that moment, and he just dropped the ball. He may have scored a touchdown on the play, and that would have given the Chiefs some life heading into the second half, and he just blew it. So that's pretty wild to just think about. Like I was thinking about that the other day. Like he just waited. Like this great player. It's not like he's a crappy player. He's a great player. Just waited for this big moment, like his entire career, just was a big letdown. It's insane. Anyway, Chiefs are a possibility, I think. Connected teams, I don't consider contenders, but maybe Metcalf thinks otherwise with Dallas. The thing here with Dallas is that Brian Schottenheimer was his former offensive coordinator in Seattle, and obviously Schottenheimer is the head coach now, so they have that connection. And I list the Raiders because that would be he would be reuniting with Pete Carroll. The Raiders need a number one receiver because Devontae Adams is gone. So I think of all these teams, like this is the one non-contender, but there is a connection there with Pete Carroll. 3 other teams, just say I guess like this middle one's not contender either. Panthers, but they have cap space. They don't have a number one threat. I don't. They probably don't belong here, but. Denver, they made the playoffs last year. They have Bo Nix. Maybe Metcalf could be talked into that. They need a receiver. And then the Packers, I listed them last because they are rivals with the Seahawks. And so maybe the Seahawks would be reticent to trade Metcalf to the Packers. But, Josh Jacobs, he said it himself. He's like, the Packers, we need a number one receiver. And Metcalf would obviously be a big upgrade there. So those are the teams that I think could trade for Metcalf. Anything stand out there?
Well, you invoked the salary cap 3 times, and I just,
Is that well? And look, John says it. Chiefs don't have the cap space. What do you think about that, Kenny?
They don't have the fake. They don't have the fake cap space. They don't. No one has it apparently. Yeah, I think any of those teams are like realistic, viable options. But you know what? In all of those cases, though, as you mentioned, I get the Packers probably count too. in that mix. Like all of those teams have a receiver that you would think could be like the dominant guy through whom the passing game goes through. But whether or not the teams trust that guy, does the team really some bourbon? Yes. I think about in Pittsburgh, they've got oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. They've got
what position?
Receiver.
Pickens.
They got Pickens.
Yeah.
Right. So like, does he take a step forward in 2025? Do they trust him to do that? Or do they want to pair him with a DK Metcalf? Like, I think the philosophy question has to be asked. Because some teams don't necessarily want two kind of big name receivers who are gonna kind of the passing game is gonna go through both. Like some guys don't want that. Some teams don't want that. So I think that becomes the question. Like, do the Chiefs want their offense to be more like spread around the way that's kind of been the last few years, or do they want a guy who's going to be more a more ball centric type receiver?
Yeah. I mean, look, they've been trying to trade for a receiver, but as the chat is pointing out that Metcalf said he wants to be a contender, beyond a contender, in the Steelers, even though they make the playoffs every year, they don't have a quarterback. John asking who's going to throw them the ball. Sam Darnold. There are rumors that they're going to bring back Justin Fields, which is like kind of makes me wonder. Like, they're choosing Fields over Wilson, and it's like, yeah, okay, but why didn't you start Fields last year toward the end of the season when like Wilson had a good run in the middle of the year somehow. I don't know how, but he did. But like once he was fading at the end of the year, when it was like apparent that he just sucked again, like why not go back to Fields? Especially given that you're choosing Fields now over Wilson. Just I don't understand what's happening there. But I assume that they're going to draft a quarterback, maybe in the second round, or like I don't think you can count them out to pull like a Carson Wentz type of deal that the Eagles had. Remember, they were drafting a 15, and they moved up twice. The Steelers are 21. Maybe they move up twice. Like if Shedeur Sanders falls out of the top 4, maybe they can pull a couple of trades off and get Shedeur Sanders. So I don't know. We'll see. Sam Darnold is, I guess, their best option outside of the draft, which just don't like. We had a good comment here from Kim McNeagle. Castle had a great season when Brady got hurt, signed a big contract, and bombed. Will that be Sam Darnold when he is away from O'Connell's guidance? I have to think so. I'd be shocked, like unless like Sam Darnold goes to a team with a great coaching staff, like the Rams came to mind when their Stafford rumors were apparent. I'm like, oh, are they gonna trade Stafford and like get Sam Darnold or something? Like Sean McVay's gonna coach him up. But I don't know how many options there are for Sam Darnold to have like a great offensive coaching staff. I feel like that's what he needs. He's just not that good. And so I think that I think he'll be better than Castle. Like Castle was not a high draft pick like Darnold was. Like Darnold has some like real talent, like Castle never did. But Darnold just mentally he's not there. Like he had the whole seeing ghost thing in the playoffs. He completely bombed. I think that he needs to be coached up, and he's almost certainly not going to get what he had in Minnesota last year.
Yeah, I think that's the. Although I think comparing Sam Darnold to Matt Castle feels a little bit unfair. Like I think Sam Darnold is clearly a better player than Matt Castle ever was, and more talent. Like Darnold was, obviously, was ruined by being a part of the Jets franchise and just never really panning out. But Matt Castle was always overrated, and those comparisons, like that's not fair to Sam Darnold. I'm in a position of defending Sam Darnold now. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah. John saying Jets could use a decent bridge like Darnold. If Darnold wasn't there in the first place, I'd agree. I joked about this with Scott Mason, who runs playlikeajet.com. He was on a few weeks ago, and I said, how like every Jet quarterback who's drafted early goes, he sucks with the Jets and then goes on somewhere else to do well. Like we had Geno Smith bombed with the Jets, and then he did well with the Seahawks. He had Sam Darnold drafted early with the Jets. He bombed, then he went to Minnesota and did well. I was like, why don't you get ahead of the curve and try to get Zach Wilson back and like just try to be like, hey, Zach Wilson, he bombed here, he left somewhere else, and then he came back, and then and so like he did well with the Jets. I don't know. So I don't know what the Jets do really. I recommend the Jameis Winston just to like have fun and just throw 60 interceptions and see what happens. Scott actually wants them to trade up for Shador Sanders, which I don't know. I mean, I've been hearing that Shador Sanders might fall. What do you think about that?
I've heard that. No, there's someone I connected with who has, someone we know that has inside knowledge that said that very few teams in the NFL actually see him as a legitimate number one prospect. That might seemingly most. So anyway, yeah. One person said that, like, hey, there's a lot of NFL teams that think he's really a second round pick, but you said it perfectly. It only takes one team, so
that's right.
Yeah. Although this same, the same things were being said about Bo Nix a year ago. There are NFL guys saying, scouts, front office guys that were saying Bo Nix was a third round pick, and he went 12th overall. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, all it takes is one team, right? And that was the one team was Denver. I don't think anyone else is taking Bo Nix in the first round. The year Kenny Pickett, Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett, went in the first round. The only team that was going to take him was the Steelers, and the only reason they took him is because he was a Pitt quarterback, and their owner said he was not passing another Pitt quarterback because he passed on Marino. So, like, like really, I think Shador Sanders goes in the first round. I think there's going to be one team that likes him. And if he's passed on by the Browns, then, I think it's going to be like one of these teams like Seattle or Pittsburgh or the Saints, where like they think right now they're like, oh, like we probably won't get him. He'll probably go early. And then he gets to their pick and they're like, wow, he's available. Like let's draft him, I think that could happen. Cassandra asking, well, Kenny, do you think Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird will appear naked in ESPN magazine again? If so, how many copies will you purchase? I used to subscribe to ESPN the magazine. We have this here.
I don't know who Megan Rapinoe or Sue Bird are. How about that?
Well, this is what he's talking about. I said Macaulay Culkin's looking pretty rough these days. So lay off the drugs, kids. That's the lesson you can learn here.
And if I knew for sure that these human beings were going to be naked in ESPN magazine, I would ensure that I don't even walk near an ESPN magazine. I would want no part of that ESPN magazine.
You've heard of Megan Rapinoe. She was the soccer player with the pink hair who was kneeling during the anthem. You're into politics. You've heard this, I'm sure.
I guess I don't think I've heard their name.
Okay. You may not know their name, but she's a soccer player. Sue Bird, daughter of Larry Bird. I actually don't know, but she's a WNBA player, I assume, or maybe she was. I don't know. We'll have to ask Tom what he thinks about Sue Bird. Maybe he has. Maybe he's bet on her or something. I have no idea. We had one other. She's the one that Putin jailed. Yes, I think so. No, that was Brittany Griner. That was she was jailed, or he. I forget what actually that person goes by, but not that I care. We had one other cut today. It was Joey Bosa, which happened like an hour ago. I guess I almost want to say it's a surprise, but at the same time, there were rumors that he was going to be released last year, and he wasn't. And my initial reaction was like, "Oh my God, they cut Joey Bosa like that. That's crazy." But he hasn't played that much the last 3 years. I was looking at his snap counts when I was writing up his rating in the free agency rankings. Past 3 years, he's played 457 snaps last year, 320 the year before that, and 165 the year before that. He used to get double-digit sacks all the time. Since 2022, he's at 3 sacks, 7 sacks, and 5 sacks. He just hasn't stayed on the field. And last year, when he was on the field, he wasn't that good. And he's going to be 30 in July. So, the more you kind of dig into this, the more you're like, okay, yeah, I understand it. And they still have a couple of good edge rushers. So, yeah, it's a wild it's a wild, like a couple years ago you would never would have thought that the Chargers would cut Joey Bosa before he gets like to 32 or 33, but they did, and he's going to be on the market. So I think this is a good buy low opportunity because, the fact that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, maybe he will be able to. These injuries are kind of fluky sometimes. So, yeah, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I hadn't seen this contract. I was curious. I was curious what was he scheduled to make? What was his like? I guess I'm looking. I can't. I was trying to. I'm on overthecap.com right now, trying to figure out what was his like. How much were they slated to pay him? Was it a huge amount of money or was it, I don't know. I don't know what his contract structure was like. But
I am pulling it up right now. Here we go. So it looks like base 13 million, signing proration 3.5 million, roster bonus 12.3 million. So cap hit was 36.4 million.
Yeah, they were gonna, and so what was he was gonna make? So he was only gonna actually. Oh, he was getting a roster bonus of 12 million. Yeah, so they're gonna pay him $25 million this year. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, you can understand it why they cut him now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you're going to pay him $25 million cash and the $36 million cap hit, but because $25 million of that is real money. Like if it was $36 million of cap hit of money they'd already paid him in the past, but they're not actually paying him any cash, it's like, well, I guess we can just keep him on the books. Who cares? We're not paying him a lot of money. When you're actually paying him a guy who's barely played $25 million and you're a cheap owner like the Chargers, that's not exciting.
Yeah, you understand it. And like I said, they have other good edge rushers. They're not going to be hurting at the position too much. Like they're going to need depth, obviously, but they're fine with their starters at the moment. So I think, like I said, he's going to be available much cheaper than what he was going to be this year with the Chargers, and maybe even a 1 year prove it deal. I think could be available for him because teams are going to be kind of hesitant to trust him after he's been unable to stay healthy the past 3 years. So I don't know which teams exactly could sign him, but I feel like it's going to be a good team. Maybe the Redskins. They need an edge rusher. I thought that they could maybe trade for Myles Garrett. I still think they're the favorites to trade for Garrett, but maybe they go cheap with Bosa. And then maybe try to trade for like Metcalf or something and really get a great receiving core or something. So as you can see, I'm a big Redskins fan. I'm really wondering what they're going to do this offseason.
And apparently you're a winker.
I'm proud of it too.
My question is, does Washington have the assets that they would willing to part with to the Browns to get Garrett?
Well, everyone has their natural draft pick this year. So they do have the first rounder.
Do they have extra though?
I don't think there's not too many teams that have extra. Like the Bills have an extra second rounder. I think the Panthers have an extra second rounder, but really there aren't that many teams that have extra picks this year. So you can always dig into 2026 as well. So I don't think it's going to take much more than a first round pick because I mean, look, Khalil Mack was traded for what, two first round picks, but he was 2 years younger than Myles Garrett was. So I think it might be like a first and a third or something. I don't know. I'm pretty bad at projecting trade compensation, but
I've seen a lot of people on Twitter propose like 2 first round picks and a second round pick, and I'm just like, it just feels like a lot.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Like I said, Mac was traded for 2 firsts, so so it's not going to take that much because Garrett's a little older. Okay, so let's get to some of the signings that happened. Here we go. I'm more than wanker than Wall to call them the Redskins, and I do hate the team. Yeah, I know Cassandra does not like the team. Cassandra's been critical of my my Washington Redskins Super Bowl futures bet, which I'm still proud of. I think I bet him at 20-1, and then I bet him again at 23-1. So I'm sitting. I don't know. I think I'm looking pretty good right now, but we'll see. I hope they don't screw up the rest of the offseason because as a proud Redskins fan, I would be I'd be very upset if they had a bad offseason. But
Well, as a proud Eagles fan, I hope a year from now you are greatly regretting that bet.
well, speaking of the Eagles, they made two big moves. They re-signed Zach Bond, 3 years, 51 million, and
Love it.
they also extended Saquon Barkley 2 years, 41.2 million. I gave both grades an A or A minus. You know, Barkley an A minus just because running backs are so they're so injury prone, and like all it takes is like one injury to a running back and he's gone. Like, remember Todd Gurley? Like he was on top of the world. He's offensive player of the year, took a team to the Super Bowl, and 2 years later he's out of the NFL. Like these running backs can come and go super quickly. So I don't anticipate that happening with Barkley, but you never know. So that's the only reason I didn't give it a full A. I just gave it an A minus. But Zach Bond, 17 million a year for one of the top defensive players in the NFL. Like, he was fifth in defensive player of the year voting. He was so good for the Eagles. Like, he made all these amazing plays, so many turnovers he caused. Amazing in coverage. Run support, he was good, not great, but in coverage, I don't think there was a better linebacker in the NFL in pure coverage last year than Zach Bond. So, what do you think about these two moves by the Eagles?
I think they're both. I think they're both very good. Yeah, we want to do A or A minus or whatever it may be. And so I think, I think it was great. Zach Bond, he did get more money than I thought. I'm a little surprised. I wonder if he was going to get this amount on the open market, but maybe he was. He's a little older. He's 27, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other top linebackers that are highly, that are paid this amount of money or more, they're all a little bit younger than he is. And so because, he had some, kind of wasted years in New Orleans. And so I think about a year ago, the Eagles signed Devin White for whatever, $7.5 million a year, $8 million a year. And they signed Zach Bond for $1.5 million. What an unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And I was so excited about the Devin White signing, and he was, cut in September. And Zach Bond ends up being, all pro, unbelievable. But I think it's a good signing. It feels like they're overpaying a little bit. And so, but it's not my money. If Jeffrey Lurie wants to do it, I guess. I don't think they had any other viable options. I don't think they were going to be able to replace him and the production. Now, I don't even know that you're going to get from him what you got this year. Like, I think it's unrealistic for the Eagles to expect he's going to play at the level he played this year. I'm not sure that's realistic, but he's going to be a very good player, and I can't imagine were going to be able to replace that easily in free agency or the draft. And he was such a big part of the defense this year. He was the glue. It really kind of led the defense. Jalen Carter up front is the game wrecker, but Zach Bond really became like kind of the leader and the glue of the defense in a lot of ways. And I think that was huge. And so I think it's a great move for them, and it keeps their defense mostly intact as they go into the next year. They lost Darius Slay, obviously, but they've got great corner depth, so I'm not concerned about that.
What were the Saints doing that they had Zach Bond on the roster and they barely used them?
Yeah, I don't know. They had him as a special teamer and like a rotational D end, right? Like,
right, yeah.
I don't know. As I watch him play, and I'm like, this guy is such a natural off-ball linebacker. As you said, he's good against the run. Maybe not great, but he's good. He's very good in pass coverage. He's also good. He's good on blitzing. The Eagles blitzed very little, but when he did, he was very good at it. And he's a great tackler, and he's a great at punching the ball out. I mean, I don't know if he led the league, but he was one of the most in fumbles forced in 2024. So I don't know. It's not like the Eagles coached him up. I mean, like maybe a little bit, but like there was clearly some natural talent and ability there that they just totally whiffed on.
Yeah, it's a big part of football is evaluating your own talent, and the Saints didn't do that, and kind of wonder why. And look at the coaching staff; they had Dennis Allen there. Like Dennis Allen, notoriously one of the worst head coaches we've seen. This or the last decade. So yeah, the fact that he couldn't identify that like Zach Bond is this great defensive player and just using him on special teams is just Unbelievable. John with the 411 super chat. Thank you so much, John.
Let's
Really
go,
appreciate
John.
it. Thank you so much, John. Prediction for team with top pick in the 2026 NFL draft. Um, I can go first if you want. I think it'll come down to well, obviously, it's hard to say right now because free agency hasn't happened yet and the draft hasn't happened yet. So if you ask me this question three months from now, or 2 months from now, I might give you a different answer. But right now, I would say the Browns. I think are the favorite to have the top pick. They have they're over the cap. They're gonna presumably trade Myles Garrett. If Garrett's gone, the defense is going to collapse. It's going to be awful. They don't have a left tackle anymore because Jedrick Wills is going to be gone. They don't have a running game because Nick Chubb first of all, he's free agent. Second, he's not what he was before because of that brutal knee injury. The only quarterback they have on the roster right now is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Like, obviously, that's going to change. I'm not including Watson, who's injured. He has a torn Achilles, so he's not going to play next year. So, like, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is their only healthy quarterback right now. Obviously, that's going to change. And, like, if they somehow if they flip with Tennessee and get Cam Ward, then I'll be a little bit more excited for them. But if they go into the season, let's just say if they pass on Shorter Sanders and like they go with like Sam Darnold or something or Kirk Cousins, I think that's going to be a disaster for them. I don't think they're going to win too many games. They are. I said this I think on Saturday. They are my favorite under win total team right now. Now we don't have the win totals out; those will be out after the draft. But right now, like if they were under 4.5 wins, I would bet them in a heartbeat, kind of like the Patriots last year. I took under 4.5 wins and it got there. I think they are definitely the under team to go to. If the Giants don't get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, then I think they're going to be in the running for the worst team in the NFL, and I'm sure Kenny's going to be happy about that. And I don't think you can discount the Saints because they have all these issues. They have no depth. If they have injury issues again, they're going to be like truly awful. And the other three teams in the division aren't good, but they are getting better. At least, well, the Buccaneers are fine, but the Falcons are going to be better. The Penix, the Panthers are, they have a lot of cap space, and the Bryce Young's getting more experience. Like the Panthers are going to be better next year. So the Saints could have the top pick as well. But right now, my prediction is Cleveland to have the worst record. I think the Raiders could be in the mix too, but if their defensive line is going to be a lot healthier this year, Christian Wilkins barely played last year. Max Crosby dealt with an injury. We'll get to him in a second. And Malcolm Kuntz was out for all of 2024. If they are healthy in the defensive line, then they'll be better than they were last year. But they have same injuries again, then they'll be in the mix. But yeah, Cleveland is the team for me. What do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, as I was listening to you, I was looking at the standings from this year, and I think the Browns are the obvious potential for all the reasons you said there. Yeah, I wonder. But they've got enough other players there. They might end up winning a few games by accident. Yeah, I think the Browns are probably the leader in the pack. I think the Colts could also be a total disaster. If they stick with Anthony Richardson and just keep trying to trot him out there, I think that could fall apart and be a disaster at some point. And maybe they've got enough good players where that couldn't happen. But I wouldn't count them out totally. The Saints will be an interesting one depending on what they decide to do with contracts, right? Like whatever, it's $51 million over the cap, whatever the number is. If they decide, hey, you know what? We are going to just punt this season, and we're just going to cut, 10 good players and just be terrible, horrid, and just totally tank this year. Then they'll get the number one pick. Like I think that's the case. Yeah, the Giants. As much as I would love to see them be terrible forever and ever and ever, the one thing that this, they've got a lot of egg on their face with the Saquon Barkley thing, like the Hard Knocks video, all the stuff that came out about the Giants. I have a suspicion that's going to motivate the Giants front office to want to do some, either make a splash in free agency, trade up, get a play. Like I would be surprised if the Giants don't try to do something that's going to add some significant talent to their roster to try to erase the disaster of the last, the PR disaster they've had the last 12 months. I mean, you had so many Giants fans openly rooting for the Eagles in the Super Bowl as like despite their own team, which is just like it's unbelievable. So many Giants fans that were just totally ticked off. So that leads me to believe that the Giants are going to do something and that they're going to take a step forward. That's my guesstimate.
Yeah, you could be right about that. I think they probably. It sounds like Jordan Renan from ESPN. It said sounds like the Giants are trading up to number 1 with Tennessee, so to get Cam Ward. And if that's the case, then I would take the Giants out of the mix. I'm saying that if because their only quarterback right now on the roster is Tommy DeVito, so which is like pretty horrible. So I don't know. It depends. What'd you say?
I sent you a meme a couple days ago.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, someone that said sent it to me, and they're like, it said the Giants have no quarterbacks on their active roster right now, and simultaneously, this is the best quarterback room they've had in years.
Right. Speaking of former Giants quarterbacks, you have Daniel Jones. You mentioned the Colts as maybe being the worst team in the NFL next year. Kenny, the Colts, they've shown interest in Daniel Jones, so I don't know how you can possibly say that.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
You know what's interesting? Speaking of the 2026 draft, it's so funny that every team that the Mannings were originally connected to are potentially going to be in the running for the top pick in the draft. If you're right about the Colts, because Peyton Manning's Colts.
Mm-hmm.
They like you said, they could be awful with Richardson. You have the Giants. Eli's team, and then you have the Saints. You have Archie's team. So like all three of those teams, you could see Arch Manning playing for one of them. And I've said this before, like Arch Manning is going to have a choice whether to come out or not next year. Mm-hmm. And like if one of those 3 teams has the top pick, I guarantee he's going to come out because he could play for his grandfather's team or his uncle's teams. But if it's like the Browns with the top pick, there's no way he's coming out and he's going back to Texas. So he's kind of like in a great situation where he gets to choose like whether he wants to play for this team or not. Although Archie Manning could maybe orchestrate another trade if possible, but I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. He did it once. I didn't mention anything about Barkley. Saquon signing is interesting because the Eagles have for a long time have kind of had a policy, and a lot of teams do, that they don't renegotiate contracts after just 1 year. They don't extend players after 1 year. And so I don't think the Eagles have changed their perspective or their opinion on whether or not that's the right thing. I just think this is such a special, this was such a special situation with Saquon's, he had one of the greatest, maybe the greatest running back season ever, offensive player of the year, probably should have been MVP in my opinion. They win the Super Bowl, just a remarkable, season. I think it's special. So the Saquon signing feels more like, hey, we want to reward you for what you just did, and less about we want to pay you and keep you on the roster to make sure we keep you longer. I think this extension is more about rewarding him than it was keeping him longer, which they don't have to do that. And there are not many teams that do that. And so they did the same thing with Nick Foles after they won the Super Bowl. So I think, I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah, John pointing out they have to show their gratitude for not letting him play in the last game to break the record.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
And it wasn't just Saquon that wanted to break the record. The entire offensive line wanted to go for it because it's them as well. If you're hey, I was one of the offensive linemen.
Oh yeah.
That when Lane Johnson goes into the Hall of Fame and he says, I'm a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, two-time Super Bowl champion. Multiple Pro Bowls, multiple All Pros, and I was the best offensive lineman on the team that broke their rushing record. That's an element on Lane Johnson's resume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the offensive line are super proud of that, and Barkley would have definitely bought him some gifts for for allowing him to break the rushing record. It's kind of a shame that he didn't get a chance to do it, but obviously the important thing was winning the Super Bowl. But still, he easily would have gotten that against the Giants, a team that can't stop the run. He only needed 101 rushing yards. Is that it?
Yeah, and I don't think they would have cared. I don't think the Giants were they were not the kind of team that were we're going to get up for this game and not let them get the record on us.
Yeah, They could have felt that way at the beginning, but then like once he breaks off 50-yard run, like they'd be like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we see the writing on the wall here. We're gonna give up. So uh,
Now, Saquon did break the record for most total yards in a season, including the postseason. Like
yeah,
that's nothing. That's not nothing. I mean,
yeah, yeah. That's 100% true. Um, okay, so we had a couple other signings before we head out. We had the Raiders actually make two moves. They re-signed Max Crosby, 3 years, 106 million. There was some talk that Crosby could maybe be traded. So obviously that's not going to happen. He's going to be there for a while, and when healthy, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. You could argue maybe the best defensive player in the NFL. I think maybe T.J. Watt could have something to say about that, but he's only 27. And when he's on, like it's so difficult to block him. Like he absolutely destroyed the Chiefs in that Christmas game a couple years ago. And like the Chiefs not having a left tackle just makes blocking him just so much harder. And then the Raiders also signed offensive lineman Alex Kappa, 2 years, 11 million. This guy used to be pretty good, when he was with the Bengals and whatnot, and then he just has declined recently. He was awful last year. He's 30, but 30-year-old lineman could play, interior lineman could play pretty well. So maybe he bounces back, but he's had some injuries too. So as you said with like Christian Kirk, like once these guys go, like with these injuries, like they could really collapse here. So I don't know if this is going to pan out, but for a team that really needs offensive line help, signing this guy, like why not? Why not do it? And if it works, it works. It's great for the quarterback, whoever that's going to be. If it doesn't work, then whatever, they'll just cut him. So what do you think about these moves that the Raiders made?
yeah, I agree with you. The Alex Kappa move feels like fine, great, go for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't feel like it's that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
The Max Crosby deal, I'm shocked by this one. I think it's great for Crosby. It's great. He was, by the way, I read a stat today. He only got one Division I offer coming out of high school. It was Eastern Michigan. Like, how do guys and he wasn't even, he was a 4th-round pick and like was kind of seen as like a tweener. We're not really sure what position you are. I always think it's amazing that guys that weren't that dominant in high school and like weren't that dominant in college could turn into such dominant players at the pro level. I think it's great. I think it's just I think it shows maybe the hard work he put in to get better, and I appreciate that. Yeah, this is a lot of money. It feels like an overpay, but I think when you're the Raiders, you have to address.
Just bad.
I lost a train of thought.
You think it's
I
an
like
overpay?
I like the signing.
Okay, fair enough.
Sandra totally threw me off.
Yes. The boss is random. I saw Arroyo to be first head and 75-1 seems like good value. Yeah, that is really good value. Charlie Campbell posted an article during the combine saying that Arroyo is looking like a top 25 pick. This obviously, you have Tyler Warren there. Like he's going to be, he's probably going to be the first pick, but 75-1 seems like great value. The boss, where'd you find that? I wish I could look it up, but I'm in Pennsylvania, which does not allow you to bet on the NFL draft. So I have to drive to the Trenton Thunder baseball stadium to bet on the NFL draft, which I'll be doing, of course. But yeah, Ukraine is now approximately Ukraine is approximately 300 billion over the cap. Well, Zelensky said he can't find 70 billion of it. So
listen, that money is very real. That is not fake. The money we spend in Ukraine is real money.
And it disappeared. They lost 70. Zelensky lost 70 billion of the 170 billion
listen, you and I both know that's BS. He didn't lose it. They don't want to account. They don't want to be honest about what it's actually been spent on. That's the reality.
Well, I mean, what happened is a lot of it went to these shell companies to manufacture weapons, and the shell companies disappeared. Like the people are like, "Wait, you're giving us money? Like, see ya. About this war. We're out of here." So yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that we sent all this money to them. And what do we got? What do we get out of it? By the way, we got anything out of it?
Yeah.
We hurt Putin's feelings. Like, okay, FanDuel. Okay, good to know. I will. I planned on making a trip to the Trent Thunder baseball stadium ahead of the combine because Charlie was going to be on. By the way, Charlie's going to be on tomorrow. Um, so I was thinking like maybe Charlie would have some ideas for draft prop betting. But he told me he's like no, just wait till the week of the draft because we're gonna have all the information then. Like right now, like teams have an idea of what they're doing, but they really don't know. Here's an example. Like the year that Aiden Hutchinson was drafted by the Lions, ahead of the combine, the Lions were going to take Drake London. They really liked him, but then he had like Trey Walker really took off, and then Hutchinson dropped to them at number 2. So they ended up with Hutchinson, but they really like Drake London. It's just like these teams have these plans right now, but a lot changes. Like the pro days still have to happen. They're going to have these top 30 visits, which we have a tracker on the site on already. Like right now, it's tough to bet on any props. So I don't know if Charlie's going to give us anything tomorrow from a props perspective, but I mean, he could always like drop some nugget and like we can get ahead of it. So I think I'll make a trip to the Trent Thunder baseball stadium. Maybe not this weekend, but like after free agency and just see what they have. So if anything stands out, I'll talk about it on the show.
Nice.
Yeah. And Zelensky still wants guarantees. Yeah, exactly. When Obama was president, Susan Rice led the push to get Zelensky into power. That and Biden's incompetence created the current situation there. A lot went into it. And people made a lot of money from this war. It's a shame that people had to die for these rich people to make more money. It's like, what are they going to do with this money? I have no idea, but maybe they can enjoy their 8th yacht or whatever, but it's a shame. It's really a shame that there's so much greed and stuff that people lead others to die just so they can get rich. It sucks, but as you always say, Kenny, trying to make the world a better place. It's kind of hard with scumbags like this running around.
Yeah, I don't know much about foreign policy, and I don't think I want to know much about foreign policy. I like being ignorant. It feels good. But I will say, I don't think there's any good guys in the like. I think it's easy to we think of the world as good guys and bad guys. That's like a very, that's a very simplistic way of looking at the world. There's like, no, like everyone has like every person has a shade, has elements of good, elements of bad, and shades of everything in between. And there is no such thing as good guy and villains. It's just a bunch of complex humans with all sorts of selfish motivations. And that's my TED Talk. Thanks for coming.
Well, yeah, in politics and war, there's bad guy and worse guy. So
that's true.
That's what it is. Who pays for Crosby's tattoos? Him or the Raiders? That's the biggest point of negotiation. Exactly. Yeah, maybe they'll chip in like 50% or something. Yeah. Like like there's like even like even like Mal helped the old lady across the street. Like there's this great area to everyone. So I guess that's about it. You said you wanted to call me out on something ahead of the show. But I mean, you may have done it already a little bit, but I don't know if you wanted to emphasize.
Yeah, I already did. We talked about the salary cap. Yeah, I think I hear people do this a lot, and I always think it's. And I heard you and Quack did it. You did it on this show tonight, where the correlation, like, this team has a lot of salary cap space. That means they're more likely to go sign this player or trade for this player. But the history shows that like lots of salary cap space does not necessarily correlate with acquiring players. They actually rarely correlate. So I think it's kind of a useless data point when you say this team's got a lot of salary cap space. It's like, well, they do. That's true, but it actually doesn't help us know whether or not they're actually going to be willing to go acquire said player.
Yeah, but Kenny, you have to understand something. Like when I do these articles of like where these players need to go or where they could go, if I ignored the salary cap, I'd have to list like 18 teams, like 20 teams. It's just like a shortcut for me, man.
So what I'm going to try to do, I'm doing the research on cash flow. I was telling you about this before we started recording. I'm going to try to figure out the answer might be no, there might not be. There might not be a legitimate way to figure this out. But like is there a way to figure out like what are the barometers that what's the rubric that would trigger or help us understand which teams are going to spend money? And there may be a total impossible number, like that might be impossible, but I'm going to try to figure out okay, is there a certain thing or is it just certain? Anyway, I'm working on trying to figure out, is there a correlation between cash flow and free agency?
Yeah, you said to me before we started the show that you were working on this article, so I'm looking forward to reading it. You have great stuff here on the capisfake.com. Want to talk about before we head out?
Yeah, the capisfake.com. What I really mean is the cap is real, but it's just easy to manipulate. That's the bottom line. And if teams are willing to manipulate it, they can. Sometimes they're imbeciles though, and they can't. And that's also part of the. So sometimes teams are just not bright. The other thing I didn't realize. There's some other articles. I got some stuff on fantasy football there. I got an article on Jalen Hurts there. I've got some other fantasy football strategy stuff that's more evergreen content. So there's some other articles if anyone's interested to check out some of those things. I've got some, done some research on. How long it takes a quarterback and a coach combination to win a Super Bowl. For example, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen are now well outside the window. History says they will never win a Super Bowl together. The Bills should fire Sean McDermott. Anyway, those sorts of things, if anyone's interested in checking it out. And I'll continue to do some some cash flow analysis. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah. I also noticed, I was telling you this, I've been doing some research on teams' revenue. And I'll just say this, the Buffalo Bills, if John Sanders is still watching, the Buffalo Bills they are the least profitable franchise in the NFL. They only made $65 million last year. The Dallas Cowboys made over $400 million last year. And so pretty remarkable. The Eagles were 10th overall, 155. So the Cowboys are 3X of the Eagles, which is, I think it does put franchises like the Bills, like the Packers. I do think they're at a disadvantage when it comes to signing free agents.
What do you attribute that to?
They make less money on the local on local revenue. That's their biggest thing. So, the Packers are technically a nonprofit organization, which I didn't know. I just learned that this week. So, there's less local money to be made in Green Bay than there is in Dallas or New York.
Right. That makes sense.
It's local corporate sponsorships. Or the teams, the Chargers don't make as much money because they done Buffalo isn't a real city. Okay. That's twice that I've lost a train of thought because of a Cassandra comment. Buffalo isn't a real city. That's not nice. funny, but not nice.
Yeah, we couldn't sign any free agents until we got Josh Allen. That's the sticky point. You have Josh Allen. I feel like that's why I think the Redskins are going to have a good offseason. My Redskins, because they have Jane Daniels and the players want to play with them.
That's right. That makes all the difference.
Yeah. And Mike's saying Bills will make more money with their fancy new stadium in 2026. So is that do you think it's going to be a factor?
Yeah, I have not done enough research yet. I don't know. I guess it's definitely possible. I know that the Cowboys, because they own the stadium, Jerry Jones owns all the rights to the stadium. He makes all of the revenue. He doesn't share it with anyone. And he makes money off the stadium. The Cowboys make money from non-football related events that are held at the stadium. Mm-hmm. Where Lincoln Financial Field, for example, in Philadelphia, it's owned. The Eagles basically are only a third. They're technically a tenant. They don't actually own. They own a third. They own a third of the shares of the revenue there. So they only make a third of the money that comes in through the stadium, which is a significant deal. Significant difference. The city of Philadelphia owns a third, and the state of Pennsylvania owns a third. It's a three-way ownership share. So that makes a big difference if you own the entire rights of the stadium, opposed to So when the NCAA national championship game was held in Dallas a couple years ago, they basically rented the stadium from Jerry Jones, and he made a crap ton of money off of that.
Yeah, that's the way to go. If you can pull it off, that's the way to do it. Last question before we head out. The important one. Sue asking, who's going to box up all those books behind you, Kenny?
It's going to be a disaster. I'm going to have to do it myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it. We have a wife with a third baby along the way, so going to be doing everything, Kenny. So
That's right.
So I'd say, well, I want to congratulate you on the new house, though. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, when only 51 million is the worst profitable organization, you have good business. That's 100% true.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, look, you said it to me before we start recording. There are some soccer teams that lose 9 figures, which would surprise no one in the chat, by the way. Manchester United, which like people would know, it's a famous team. They what'd you say they lost? 126 million?
I think they lost 114 million dollars one year.
Okay, yeah,
something like that. Soccer teams have like this incredible like up and down. Like they'll make 200-300 million one year and then lose 100 million. Like it's a crazy business.
Yeah. Well, if they played a real sport, maybe people would watch. Sue says we lose an hour Sunday a.m. for Walt's daylight savings time. Better start banking your rest. I don't get any rest here. I get I'm down to like 3.5 hours a day. Just because like what happens is I go to sleep around 6:15 ish, and I'll wake up at like 10. So it's like almost 4 hours, but 3.75 hours. And like what happens is I'll wake up at 10, and I'm like, oh, let me check the stocks, and I check the stock market, and I'm like all hyped up. I'm like looking at and then I can't go back to sleep, and like that's how my night goes. So. But I don't know. Like ever since I started chewing these magnesium gummies, like I feel like I've needed less rest, like even less than usual. So I don't know. Maybe I'd be like Kramer, just like fall asleep randomly. But all soccer teams should lose money until they give up the stupid sport. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I knew people in the chat would chime in with that.
I will say this: there've been. And I'm not a hockey fan, but there are NHL teams that have lost money over the years as well, and baseball teams that have lost money over the years. And so that's why they've moved. I guess there was a hockey team in Atlanta. Apparently, why is there hockey in Atlanta? Like no one in Atlanta cares about hockey. But like, seriously, all they care about there is what was that?
The Thrashers.
Yeah, but apparently they had to move because they lost money one year. And I'm just like, first of all, like, why is there like no one in Atlanta cares about hockey? Okay, all they care about in Atlanta is college football and Chick-fil-A. Okay, like stop it. Don't put hockey in cities where people don't care about it. But apparently they lost money one year. They lost like $39 million, and they had to move. They had to move the team to, I guess, back to Canada. I don't know, because they're going to have higher tariffs now on hockey. Apparently, I don't know.
Well, it's reciprocal tariffs. What these other countries charge us for these tariffs is like unbelievable. Like you not to get off on this tangent here, but Canada charges like 100% plus for like some stuff, and like we don't charge them anything, or at least we didn't beforehand. So, what Trump was talking about, like with reciprocal tariffs, it just makes a lot of sense. Like why do other countries get to rip us off? And yet like our ally countries, quote unquote ally countries, we defend them with our army. Like what do we get out of this? Like you can at least give us some money. So yeah. So hopefully the Sabres losing money will move any day now. I do like the logo. I do like the logo at least. I'm not. I used to be a big hockey fan. Now I'm not. But I do appreciate like the logo or whatever. But all right, guys. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. I really appreciate it. Thanks, especially to John Sanders for the 411 super chat. Thank you so much, John. Once again, really appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. Charlie Campbell's going to be on around 10:30. We're going to do a mock draft. So that'll be fun. And then Charlie will give us some nuggets that he heard from the combine. So check that out. And then Saturday we'll be back with Tom. Please hit like, subscribe, comment, below, share this video. Visit the link in the description of the merch store. Check out thecapIsFake.com. And Kenny, once again, love doing the show with you. Can't wait till next week. We're gonna have a surprise next week, by the way. You told me that we're gonna have a surprise. Can't wait to see what it is. I'm very curious. You know what it is. I have no idea, so I'm in the dark here. So everyone else will get to find out just like me. Guys, thank you so much once again, and have a great night. And I will talk to you tomorrow.